Welcome to another episode of the Romanian Academy's lectures. I'm Stefan, and today we're gonna have a very different episode than the usual. We're gonna talk about some tips, tricks, and more, like above all, I want to clarify a lot of things about the Romanian tenses. I'm gonna take them one by one. I'm gonna explain what you need to know about them. I want to explain when you should learn them, and I want to tell you as well how important and difficult they are when you actually speak in Romanian. So, without further ado, let's talk about tenses in Romanian, a topic with a lot of weight, and I have to say it's a big part of the backbone of the language. So, you really want to focus on this in your studies. Let's dive into it then. Right, so the first thing that we're going to talk about today are the tenses, but just before that, I want to clarify something. So, all those three are covering verbs. Verbs are what you know as action words, or more, well, if you know already Romanian, they are the a and then word, the infinitive of a verb, or the title of a verb is what you have with a merge, a duce, a primi, a scrie, those kind of things. So, when you talk about verbs, you will have different ways to express the action, whether it's finished, present, or in future, or also, this is, by the way, this is pretty much tenses, but then it gets into moods, where you're talking about different ways to express yourself. It's about the modality of like the way you express yourself, and that's where the moods come into play. In English you don't really have that, so that for you might be completely new. This is present in other Latin languages. Take for example the subjunctive in French or Spanish, and then the voices that you do have in English is a bit easier to understand. And in addition to the active and the passive voices that you have in English as well, in Romanian you also have the reflexive. So this is like a little bit of an overview, and just to clarify, it's all about verbs and how to use them depending on what you want to express. Take that into account, because what you want to express will be a very important part, if not of tenses, then of moods. Then definitely you will want to know how you express yourself and what exactly you're gonna say. Yeah, it's very easy to just say whatever, as it is in any language. That's why slang came up to play, and that's why there are so many different sub tenses, sub moods, if you want to call them like that, that you would like to know to express yourself properly. However, not to scare you or overwhelm you, I will have in this video a lot of the insights of when or what you should know and how people speak natively in Romanian, and what to avoid, for example, in the first few months, let's say. Anyways, without any other interruption, let's go and see which are the tenses in Romanian. So, here on the left you have all the tenses in Romanian. If you watch the present tense verbs, you know that there is no present continuous. There's just one present, aka present simple in Romanian. Then you have perfect compus, which is basically the standard past, if you want. The future, viitor, with its two minimum forms. The simple future, if you want in English. The imperfect, which is either used to or the past continuous in English. Then perfect simplu, which is very impractical. It has its use, but it's a very impractical verb tense to learn in Romanian, because it's only used in one region of the country, and also in literature and lyrics. So if you want to learn perfect simplu, it is useful. I'm not saying not, but you might want to do it later on in your studies. Then mai mult ca perfect. This is also quite a heavy topic, as it is the past perfect in English. You will use it probably at some point, but not in the first year or two when you study the language. And then future perfect, viitor perfect, is when you have it's like in English when you have will have done, right? I will have done. It's a tense that you would use when you have mastered most of the language already. One thing that I want definitely to mention straight out of the bat is that when you talk about tenses in Romanian, in my opinion, and this is completely subjective, that tenses and most of those grammar topics, I'm not saying all, but most of those grammar topics, they should be what you learn kind of until B1. I think that from B1 onwards, B2, C1 and so on, there's nothing to do with grammar anymore. Once you build a foundation, you should just focus on vocabulary. So if you will see any level assigned to verbs, tenses, verbs, moods, verbs, voices, they will all be from, let's say, a 0 to B1, right? So I would say in this situation, I would not even consider A0, because A0 is more like when you learn how to say bună ziua, and when you learn how to say eu sunt. You don't actually study the tense, you just learn basic conversation. That is what A0 is for, to get yourself a grasp. A0 is for Duolingo if you want. And then you go to A1, B1, and obviously A1, A2, B1, which is when you learn tenses and moods and voices. Now, let's get to talk about the tenses. I would say that this is the order I would go if I would teach you the Romanian grammar. From present, which is, I would say, the first tense you should learn. It's A1, early A1, as soon as possible. Get yourself learning the present tense. It's something that we also cover in the Romanian Academy under the present tense videos. Then you have perfect compus and viitor, which I would say they are the second and third tenses. Right after you finish with present tense, you should really get into perfect compus and viitor. I would say if this is like early A1, then perfect compus and viitor, that should be just the next thing. So I would say it's also A1. Why? Because you want to know how to express yourself in the most basic form in the three tenses that you have basically in any language, right? Which is the present, the past, and the future. That's why I put all those three under A1. And that's why I really recommend focusing on those three straight away. Start with present perfect compus, which is if you don't know what perfect compus is the am fost, ai fost, am mers, and so on. Probably the most standard past tense in Romanian. And then you have imperfect, which is probably a slightly more advanced thing. I would say when you get to A2, it's something that you really want to know, because it's extremely widely spread across the language. People speak it a lot, and it's very common to find it in written, spoken. That's I guess all the forms that you can find. So I would really suggest, after you have, let's say, a medium understanding of present perfect, past and future, go and learn the imperfect. It will really help you. This is a tense that's used commonly for telling a story. It's also something that's very commonly used in narration. Whether you say the narration or you read it, it's something extremely common. And also it has this extra use of using it for used to, what you say used to in English, like I used to live, usually using perfect. There's also a set phrase, which is obișnuiam să, nu i-am să. This is a set phrase, but it's still in imperfect. This obișnuiam is still in imperfect, and you might wonder why is it am at the end when you know the perfect compose that it has it at the beginning. Well, we will learn about the imperfect in a future video. At the moment, what you need to know is that you should really learn the A2 imperfect. Then, perfect simplu mai mult ca perfect, viitor perfect. Okay, so all those tenses, in my opinion, are B1. I would probably start teaching this actually before perfect simplu because it has more uses. I would say it's just more common to see the mai mult ca perfect, the plus ca perfect, the more than perfect, the whatever you want to call it. I would suggest learn the mai mult ca. I forgot to put this under A2. Learn the mai mult ca perfect first. So I would say, let's say early B1, and then learn the other two in your spare time or whenever you feel comfortable, basically with everything else previously. So this is another B1, sorry. I will probably cover in a future video what I mean by those A0, A1 and so on. And I will put this video right here. But until then, I would highly recommend sticking to this and following this order when you learn the tenses. Now, just to give you a bit more idea of what they look like practically speaking in some examples here. Eu merg la magazin. Let's change this color. It's I go to the shop, right? This is merg. When you talk about present, what is in present is merg. That's the verb. Then perfect compus. Andrei a mers foarte încet cu bicicleta. Andrei went very slowly by bike, or rode very slowly the bike. Depends how you want to translate it. Probably rode is the best in English. A mers, this is what's in past. In perfect compus, this is together. A mers. Together is perfect compus. I see so many times people forgetting about this a, and you should not. Then, viitor. So, unde vei merge, unde o să mergi are the two ways, the standard ways to use the future, depending on the region. One is more commonly used than the other. Again, like it was in the case of a mers, the vei merge is in future together. Both vei and merge make the future. Those things are called auxiliaries, and you might want to learn them when you speak because they change depending on the person. So just learn them because just saying merge will not be enough. So this is the A1. Then let's move to imperfect. Mergeam cam rar la bunica în copilărie. This can be used as used to. As I said, I used to go quite rarely to my grandma in the childhood. So mergeam also, it can be translated as I was going quite rarely. This is the imperfect. Top tip here, if you know the perfect compus, which you should if you start learning the imperfect, you should realize that this auxiliary here, new word of the day, goes right at the end of the imperfect. If you didn't know that, well, happy days, you know now. Then the B1 tenses, mai mult ca perfect. Yeah, so I forgot to, when I moved it around, I forgot to change those. So, mai mult ca perfect, as I said, in English is the past perfect. The had done, had been, had eaten. So, Ioana mersese la dentist destul de des până a făcut o carie. So, Ioana had gone to the dentist quite frequently until she got a stain. So, mersese, had gone, something that had happened before an action or something that has finished already in the past. Mersese, that's how this is built. We'll talk about the Mai Perfect later, but definitely this is quite frequent in English to use when you get, as I said, up to a level, not something that is for beginners. However, it's quite common. So same principle to Romanian. Use it and learn it in early B1, start using it, and then you'll get more familiar to Perfect Simplu, which, as I said earlier, its usage is quite limited, but you shouldn't ignore it by any means, because it exists and it's spoken, like if you meet somebody from the southwest, from Oltenia, you will not really understand what they say because they do not use Perfect Compus. They will understand you if you use just Perfect Compus, but you will not understand them because they will use Perfect Simple most of the time. Also in literature, it's very common. It gives you like this little nuance when you speak about, when you narrate, that is not just something that has finished, it's something that it finished recently, and makes you kind of closer to the action. So that's what Perfect Simple is. If you look at this example here, unde ai fost, where have you been, where did you go? Mersi la fata mea. So that means I kind of just, you can imagine Perfect Simple as just or have just plus, well, either Perfect Simple in English, simple, present perfect in English plus just, or if you don't know the present perfect in English, just imagine it as the past simple plus just. So either I have just gone or I just went. Yeah, it's not so specific, but it's something that finished recently, right? Like it's somebody that, this is why I put here lines of dialogue, right? You have, where have you been? I've been to my daughter. So it's something that, you know, when somebody asks you, let's imagine that you just arrived home, then you just have finished the action of going to your daughter, for example, as it is in this example. Then, oh, and also this is the whole form, doesn't have an auxiliary, this doesn't have an auxiliary, this doesn't have an auxiliary. And finally, the last thing probably, and I would say the least useful out of all of them, least practical, it's something that you should only learn if you got yourself to know everything before, the Viitor Perfect, the Future Perfect, or the will have done. It's something that definitely makes a difference when you speak. There's a difference in English as well when you say, for example, I will do the job by 10 a.m. or I will have done the job by 10 a.m. A native speaker will know the difference, and a native speaker in Romanian will also know the difference between veți fi ajuns and vei ajunge. That's the perfect future, and it contains both the veți and the fi. This is what makes it perfect, the fi, and this is what makes it future. So, will you have arrived at home until tomorrow at 8? Boom, that's it. Those are the tenses in Romanian. This is the, I would say, timeline that you should follow, and how difficult they are to learn. I would say that if I would say, if I would give it also here based on level, let's say difficulty, let's copy this over here and call it difficulty, and probably difficulty should be measured in either hours spent, let's say probably here the difficulty should be either, which is, let's say, easy, which is probably somewhere between 0 to 5 hours. Yeah, This is also connected. There are many factors involved in my evaluation of this, including like how close it is to English, and if there is an equivalent or not. But I just want to give you a really basic understanding of this. So medium would be the next one, which is, let's say, 5 to 20 hours, and then difficult somewhere above that. So difficult, which is 22 plus, 20 hours plus. So what this means is not only understanding what it means and how to build it, it's also practice. And practice obviously is influenced by how well you know it already. So based on that, let's say present, you should probably spend a lot of time learning it because it's such an important topic. I know it's really weird to give it a difficult mark, but yes, it is difficult to learn the present tense in Romanian, and you really need a lot of practice. It's something that you don't want to just overlook, and it's something that you should spend as much time as possible practicing it, either speaking it or finding a lot of exercises. Then perfect compus is, I would say, easy medium, to be honest. It's quite difficult to choose between them because it has such a standard form. The only thing that you would like to spend more time is definitely the participle, because it uses the participle. So that's probably why I'm gonna give it a medium here. Future, this one you cannot, you can choose the easy option. That's why I'm gonna give it 2 marks here. If you choose the form with they, if you choose the form with they, or if you choose the form with, oh my god, with oh my god, so there are 2 different pathways. The they form is extremely easy. It's so standard. It's so similar to the form with will in English. And then also you should know the conjunctive, and I would say it's medium, nothing more crazy than that. Because in conjunctive, as you'll see in a second, you'll need to know the third person. And that's the only difference from the present tense. Then, oh, by the way, all those difficulties are given, a big important note here. All those difficulties are given based on the principle that you know the previous one. So if you know, for example, present, then you'll be medium to learn perfect compus. Because otherwise it won't be very logical to give any kind of mark like this. Imperfect, the imperfect, if you know everything, as I said, the perfect compus is extremely similar. You just need to put to the infinitive the ending, which is the auxiliary for the perfect compus. That's why I'm gonna give the imperfect easy. It's very easy to learn it. Then my muka perfect. This is probably quite tricky to know. To be honest, to know when to use it is quite easy because you have the past perfect in English, but you need to learn the endings, and also you have to be aware that you have to use it if you're actually not native or fluent in English already. So that's why I'm gonna give it a medium. Medium to difficult. It's something that, again, if you're not native, if you're not native or fluent in English, although if you're listening to this video, I assume you should be, then it's more difficult than just 20 hours. Then perfect simple. Well, if you know my muka perfect and everything before, I would say it's somewhere between easy and medium. So just let me have a think. No, it's easy. I would say if you know the my muka perfect, learning the perfect simple, it's easy. And the same thing goes the other way around. Then Vitor Perfect. This one is extremely easy as well if you know everything above. As you see here, it's quite a it's quite exponential decrease in difficulty the more you know, which makes sense, right? You have to spend more time at the beginning, but yeah, that's about it for tenses. Right, so I will cover more about the moods and the passive the voices in the next video, covering those tips. Right, we will have every month a video like this, so you might want to tune for that. At the moment, I hope you got the tenses, and we will give a similar evaluation, yeah, to the moods and the voices. If I would do a quick recap about the tenses, I would say follow this table, yeah. So another thing that probably I would like to add, the reason I put early here, right, is, look, if you separate those into levels, yeah, you have A1, A2, B1. And the reason I put early A1 and early B1 is I would say I definitely recommend, I highly recommend starting with this one when you move to the respective level. So start with present when you start the language, start with more than perfect when you get to B1. With A2 there's no other one here. And also what that means is that if you want to learn future before past, that's fine. If you want to learn Vitor Perfect before Perfect Simple, that's also fine. But start with present and more than perfect when you get to A1/B1. Apart from that, the difficulty, this is again very much depending on your background and the languages that you know and the resources that you have. So it really depends. This can be a bit longer, but those estimations are based on an average. If you want to know more about this, if you want to have a better understanding, or I don't know, maybe adapt all this weird grammar talk into your own language, you can book a Calendly appointment or just contact the Romanian Academy at gmail.com and I can help you with it. I can give you also different resources, so it's in your reach, let's say. It is possible to get all those tenses done in no time. Well, that's about it, guys. Thank you so much for following this. I know that it's difficult to get your head around when you just start with a language, or even when you're like stuck in the middle maybe and you don't know what's the next verb or tense or mood that you should learn. I hope this will give you an idea. I will cover moods and the passive voice in future videos. This is the Romanian Academy for this week. Please help the other people that want to learn Romania find about this channel. If you subscribe to it, hit the notification bell. Also, like it if you feel that it was helpful for you. Comment, give me any kind of feedback. I'm happy to hear it. And I'm looking forward to see you in the next one. As we say here at the Romanian Academy, la revedere!